everyone, so tonight I'm out with Ivy and we're going to do a little bit of work on our placeboard. So this has come up following the session we had a little while ago that I put up with her doing some sit, stay and recall training with the use of the placeboards, and I spotted that she was going on my body language cue and wasn't really responding to the place cue or the verbal cue. So what I want to do tonight is just go through how I would teach the placeboard initially, very briefly, and then work on seeing if I can make that place cue stronger for her. So let's give it a go and see how we get on. So when I first taught Ivy the place cue, I started with a lure. So I'm not saying anything. I've got a piece of food in my hand which I place in front of her nose, and I very slowly move it forward to get her onto the board, and then slowly lift it up, which encourages her bum down. As soon as her bum hits the board, I click to mark it and then reward her with a piece of food and release her off. So there are lots of different ways that you can start your placeboard instruction. I just chose to use luring. But the key with it is that you remove the lure from your hand as soon as possible. So once you're getting the dog to reliably perform the behaviour with the food in your hand, take it away. So with Ivy, I probably did a handful of repetitions with food in my hand before I then moved it on. So you'll see in this repetition I have nothing in my hand, but I then follow the same motion, putting my hand just in front of her nose and slowly moving it forward to encourage her onto the board, and then slowly lifting my hand up to encourage her bum down, at which point I click to mark it and then reward her, but this time the food comes out of my treat pouch. So it's really important that you only do a few repetitions with the food in your hand before you take that lure away, just because we don't want the dog to become reliant on the presence of food in order to complete the behaviour. And then in this next stage, I'm just starting to adjust my body language, moving away from the lure type body language and moving more towards what I'd want my final body language cue to look like. So then we move on to working on introducing our verbal place cue. So I started this session off with just making sure that Ivy was going to get on the board with my body language cue alone, which she did, which is fab. So she got marked for that and then rewarded and released off of the board. So then I move on to introducing the verbal cue. So my cue for this is place. So what I do is I say the place cue and then I give my body language cue to get the behaviour. So new cue, then old cue. Good. Then after doing a number of repetitions that way, so new cue, old cue, I then start to reduce my body language cue. So I say place, and there you saw I just turned my shoulders, and then on this next repetition I do it on the verbal cue alone. And she succeeds, so she gets marked, rewarded, and then we come off and have a nice little play. And then this is just an extra little activity that I like to do with the placeboard, which I have picked up from Jane Arden, who is a fabulous trainer. So if anyone is interested, I would definitely recommend that you check her out. I will leave some details about her on the notes. But what I'm doing is I've got Ivy onto the board and then I'm delivering a string of treats to her, one at a time. And the idea here is that I'm building lots of value in being on the board and making the board a really valuable place to be. Then once I finish delivering the string of treats, you'll see that I release her off the board. Now what I would normally do is wait for 30 seconds, maybe a minute, doing absolutely nothing, just standing by the board, before then asking the dog to get back on the board, giving another string of treats, releasing off and repeating. So you have this period where the dog's getting lots of value on the board, and then a period of really boring nothingness when the dog is off of the board. However, what Ivy did in this instance is I released her off, and then you'll see that she pretty much immediately chose back on the board. So this is because she knows this game. She has done this before, and she's worked out that she gets good stuff when she's on the board. So if your dog makes the decision to go back on the board when doing this exercise, that is what we want. And so you'll see here I give her another string of treats before releasing her off again. And so that was our introduction to the placeboard session complete. So really pleased with how she got on there. It's nice to see that she is now responding to the verbal cue and not requiring my body language every time. What we're going to go away and work on now is just generalising that behaviour. So practising in lots of different locations, lots of different setups and situations, to make sure that she understands that place means place wherever we are. That's one of the things that dogs aren't very good at, is generalising, and you'll often hear people say, oh, but they always do this when we're at home in the garden, but it all seems to fall apart when we go to the local park or the local woods. So it's really important that we practice this in as many different places as possible, to help make sure that the behaviour is nice and strong wherever we are. And then that was us done. So we had a little play with the tennis ball, then calmed down with the scatter feed, and then back on lead to cool down as we walked ourselves back to the car.